With one win each from Monza and Baku, Ferrari and McLaren face off in Singapore for the decisive round that will determine the top team of September. The Maranello and Woking teams are both strong contenders on the Asian street circuit, which, like Monte Carlo, closely resembles their previous successes. While there are similarities with Baku, there are also numerous differences, making this challenge distinct from last week's race. The biggest similarity between Baku and Singapore is their urban nature, with all the associated implications. This includes the tires available, with Pirelli offering the C3, C4, and C5 compounds, the softest in the range and the same as those used in Azerbaijan and Monte Carlo. Another common feature is the prevalence of short 90-degree corners where responsiveness on entry and traction on exit are more critical than mid-corner stability. Simulations indicate lateral G-forces peaking at just 3.3 G, far from the 5G experienced on European tracks. These are low-speed corners where mechanical grip from the suspension is more important than aerodynamic downforce. As seen in Baku, Ferrari excels in short 90-degree corners without revealing its stability limits, working effectively within its aerodynamic map. McLaren also performs well, particularly in traction. The uniformity of the corners aids in finding balance, an area where Red Bull has struggled for months. In the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the world champions were again competing for victory with Sergio Perez, while Max Verstappen's issues were not related to balance, but rather poor setup choices. Mercedes hopes to replicate its strong performance from the 2023 edition. However, the frequent low-speed restarts in Singapore put significant stress on the rear tires, with overheating remaining a chronic issue for the W15, as seen last weekend at the Baku City circuit. That said, the similarities between the two circuits end here. Singapore's track is more winding than Baku's, making overtaking extremely difficult and placing even greater emphasis on track position. Consequently, qualifying and pit stop strategy will be crucial during the weekend's preparation. While average lap speeds exceed 210 km per hour in Baku the qualifying session, they remain below 200 km per hour in Singapore, making it unique on the calendar alongside Monte Carlo. The characteristics of the power unit change significantly, with electric power delivery on the straight becoming less important compared to traction, a strong suit of Ferrari's units. The lower average speeds also push teams to use configurations with maximum aerodynamic load, as there are no long straights to penalize high drag. Thus, the aerodynamic and suspension setups of the cars differ from those used in Baku, as they no longer need to endure the high aerodynamic load experienced on Baku's long straight. The surface of the track is also different, generally more abrasive and with greater grip compared to Baku. However, this needs to be confirmed due to the recent resurfacing between corners 3 and 9, between 10 and 12, and between 14 and 17. In Singapore, the interaction between tires and track surface changes from that in Azerbaijan, with lower static inflation pressures. Pirelli specifies 22.0 psi at the front and 20.0 psi at the rear, compared to 26.6 and 25.5 psi in Baku. The difference is due to the lack of long straights on the Asian track, reducing the time spent at high speeds where maximum aerodynamic load is generated, thus easing tire stresses. Lower pressures ensure better grip and less overheating for the same type of asphalt, prompting teams to adjust their suspension settings. The available time during practice will be crucial, keeping in mind that, as always with street circuits, the track will evolve significantly, further influenced by the recent resurfacing. Another typical feature of the Singapore circuit is the uneven track surface, with many bumps in the racing line and relatively high curbs. The track favors a suspension system capable of absorbing these irregularities, preventing the car from becoming unsettled, sliding, or overheating the tires. In 2024, Ferrari has emerged as the best car at handling low-speed bumps, while McLaren, though performing well, does not match the Ferrari's capability. Conversely, Red Bull has often struggled under these conditions. In Baku, Max Verstappen suffered from an excessively stiff setup, complaining about a rear end that lost contact with the track. Singapore is even more critical in this regard, similar to Monte Carlo, where Verstappen described his RB20 as a go-kart due to similar issues. It is no coincidence that Singapore in 2023 marked the worst performance of the world champions, who also suffered from a lack of absolute aerodynamic load. Despite modifications made to the circuit before the last edition, the 4.94-kilometer Marina Bay Street circuit remains one of the most demanding tracks for the braking system, with a severity rating of 4 out of 5 according to Brembo. Drivers use the brakes in 12 of the 19 corners, with 5 highly demanding braking zones exceeding 4.6 g of deceleration. Attention must be paid to the car's braking performance, an aspect Max Verstappen complained about during the last race in Baku. Another issue is heat dissipation, particularly challenging given the average speeds. Brake cooling also affects tire performance as the heat from the rim transfers to the tire. In conclusion, there are many differences between the two tracks, ensuring that Singapore will not be a repeat of Baku. Any of the top 4 teams could hope for victory in Asia, with Ferrari and McLaren slightly favored. Weather conditions could also bring surprises, with possible rain on Sunday that could have a significant impact on the race and the battle for the 2024 Formula One championship.